to The Natural View. I'm Maggie Jacqua. I'm the content director of Whole Foods Magazine, and I'm here with my co-host, Todd Pelley of 24 Stories Marketing. Hey, Todd.
Hey, Maggie. Good to see you.
Good to see you, as always. And we have two special guests here, both from Alkemist Lab. We have Ilan Sudberg, he's the CEO, and Petra Erlandson, she is the Director of Sales and Marketing. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Hello.
All right, so we're talking lab testing today, and we're talking a very cool thing that you guys have done to basically educate the entire industry, help the whole industry for free. Very cool. So we want to help spread the word about that. And that's this great resource that you have, a guide for industry members on choosing the right lab. So Petra, I'll start with you. If you could just kind of tell us about the guide, how to choose an analytical testing lab, it's called. Tell us what it is, and we'll dive deeper into everything that it covers. But just give us an overview, and then Ilan, I'm going to ask you to kind of tell us what motivated you to go ahead and put that out there.
Sure.
Yeah. So our how to choose a lab piece really came out of the fact that we did not see guidance on this in the industry. And we have clients asking us all the time, clients who come to audit us, and clients looking for not only our services, but other testing services in the industry. And we realized that there are a lot of great companies out there who want to pick a good lab, and they're really not sure how to do it. So it's our take and introduction on what we think are some of those critical factors companies should keep in mind when they are evaluating testing labs.
Yeah, so very cool. So what got you started? What got you thinking to do it? And Ilan, just tell us kind of the process there.
Well, so Petra does a really great job of taking my visionary ideas that sometimes very unrefined and or have no direction and making it to amazing products. So this is one of those examples. There's many, but the original idea was, look, there's some bad labs in our industry, and I love marketing. I should have been a marketing major. I would have graduated much sooner. But so one of the ways you can, mark something is you can talk bad about it, or you can celebrate greatness. And so originally I wanted to say all sorts of bad stuff about the bad labs, but instead, we took the direction of basically like, hey, let's create a list that the industry can follow that would very quickly kill the bad labs from being in our in that process. So one of those kill steps is go to the FDA's website. It's not FDA.gov. Maybe we could share that link later, Petra. Basically, look for 43. Look for a warning letter. Just like if you're going to have someone watch your kids, you might want to check Megan's list, as an example, as like a really extreme version of like, are they a convicted felon? Then you'd say, no, thank you, and go to the next person. And so if you found a lab you later found out has a 43 or a warning letter, and, some 43s are sort of understandable. Calibration record on a thermometer was off. That's not a huge deal. But, being involved in wrongfully testing a product where people actually died, I'd say that's a pretty good reason not to use that lab. And so I wanted to produce something for the industry to use for good, but also that had an evil kill step in it to root out all the bad labs. And that's what we did. We basically had that idea, and it turned into this really amazing data for the industry that, like Petra said, there's nothing else like it as of now.
Yeah, that's so true. And I'm wondering, let's back up for just a second. Ilan, tell us a little bit about, as far as current state of product testing. I know there's still some companies out there that look at it and say, hey, it's too expensive. I'm just going to go with a lab that'll give me a yes. Can you talk a little bit about that in terms of why it's important for natural products companies to test ingredients, finished goods, and then why it's important to choose a quality lab versus just any?
Yes. So another one of Petra's great ideas on this was to involve industry leaders. So we had Rand and Len chime in on that. And, so it wasn't just Alkemist talking about how to choose a lab. Obviously, that looks more cited, which we could fully understand. But having those influential industry folks chime in was really helpful. But I mean, it's garbage in, garbage out. You can make a really great product with really great marketing and get right in front of the people you want to get in front of. But if you put in the wrong ingredient, the worst thing could be that it doesn't work. The worst is that people die. And, that has not happened in our industry. We have, the safest of the FDA regulated industries, including medical devices, pharmaceutical, food, and veterinary. We have the least amount of recalls in our of those categories in our industry. So we are an amazingly safe industry. But if you want your product to work, you have to put good products in there. So it's obvious, just make sure you're testing it. And perhaps we're giving a little bit of a hint, but we'll be working on a position piece on basically specs and how to write those specs appropriately, because the industry seems to be lacking on that. Remind me your second part of that question. Sorry, what was the second part of that question?
No, just in general, boy, I have to think back. What was the second part of my question? I kind of answered because it was really, it was really just about why should people test and why should they use a good lab? So I think you kind of covered it.
Yeah, garbage in, garbage out. Also, it's the law. I mean, it's required.
By the right. Oh, yeah. That's a good reason.
Yeah. And maybe I can add to Lon's point. I mean, we are seeing, just from what we hear from our clients, from the emails we're getting and the phone calls we're getting, that regulatory inspections are, back on a rebound after COVID. Regulators are asking for more. They're pushing for more details. Yeah. And so companies really need to be aware of that and be ready. And for a lot of companies, they lean on a third-party lab to do at least a portion of their quality testing. And regulators are not just looking at the data that a company might be producing from their own lab, but they're looking very critically at the data that's coming out of third-party lab partners as well.
Which is, go ahead. I was going to add that, which is why it's important to pick the right partner. And we do indicate that in the piece that, how to choose that. There are, I was going to say there's a lot of labs in industry. There's only a handful left. There's a few big ones and a few tiny little ones left. And you can't just send your complicated samples to a big lab thinking they can just do it like they do everything else. These plants are complicated. The ingredients in our industry are complicated, and then you mix them all together and it gets more complicated. And using a lab that really has expertise on those particular types of products is really critical. As Petra indicated, the investigators are learning very quickly what to pick at facilities when they're doing an investigation as the FDA. They are learning quickly on what to look for now. And do you have the right spec? How do you know this passed? Just because the lab that you use says it passed, can you tell me why it passed? Because the FDA is going to be able to do that, and sometimes better than some of these internal labs or internal quality folks in the industry.
This is a complicated topic. There's a lot to cover here, and you really made it digestible, and you really broke it down into key points that I think, or help people at least get that started, see where they need to go. So I wanted to kind of touch on some of those first most important things, which you have a whole list of questions in the guide on what you should ask, and you break it down by categories. And I wondered if you could just give us kind of some of the key points, when you're looking for a new lab, somebody to partner with, what are some of the important factors that you should be looking for, or questions that you should be asking?
Yeah, thank you for the compliment, Maggie. And I have to say that we had a whole team of people who were helping to produce this content. It was a little bit of a labor of love. We finally got through it. We weren't really sure, to be honest, would people even be interested in this piece that we spent so much time on? And we've had such a huge response that it's been really gratifying from all that work. We tried to write the piece in a way that it would be helpful, even if a company wasn't doing botanical testing. Our specialty is botanical testing and contaminant testing and things that go along with that. But we tried to position it in a way that it was going to be helpful, even if the type of testing you need isn't something that Alkemist can do. It came down to a couple key things. You won't be surprised to hear us say the word transparency. Transparency is like a fervent belief of Alkemist labs, but not just that, but it's necessary for the quality system of our clients, is they need to know how the testing is being done, not just that the testing is being done. So some of the themes in the piece are about transparency, how to see that in your lab. Also, this issue of you want a lab partner who is in the industry, involved in the scientific community, because that's how labs stay up to date with what's going on. Yeah, I'm trying to think, Alon, what were some of the other key ones that we should highlight on there? Oh, and just to add in, Alon earlier brought up the FDA website. It's at the FDA data dashboard. And we included
Yes.
a link to that in the piece. A lot of people are not familiar with that and don't even know of that as a tool, and it's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just to speak on transparency. There was a lab in our industry, and they showed up with new technology. And when you asked them about it, they were defensive as though you were trying to steal it from them. And we wanted to work with that lab, and to work with another lab after lab, we send them an audit. In person would be best. This lab wouldn't even fill out our form until we spend $10,000 with them. So it was all just trust me, trust the science, don't ask these questions, don't do your own research kind of a stance. And I've that felt yucky from the very beginning. And that was really what sparked my sort of movement toward transparency, that there's no reason not to be transparent. When I was in college in chemistry, you would bring your lab notebook to the professor, who would look at it and say, yes, you may enter and go to your experiment. And when I finished that lab experiment, I had to do all the calculations and show. I didn't say proprietary, trust me, you can't look at this. And then somehow in industry, there was this void of transparency. And then if you go to court, it's all not transparent. So you have to basically, I'm sorry, it's all transparent. You have to basically show. So in college and court, it's all transparent. Somehow in industry, it wasn't. And I said, this is strange. Why don't we share everything so that people have confidence in what we do? And that's how we started the lab. And that other lab that I was sharing that wouldn't share kind of invigorated me to bring this up as a topic. And hence here we are still yelling at the top of our lungs how to choose a lab, and transparency is one of those key features. How could you trust without actually backing up with data?
I think. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Petra.
Well, I was just going to say another key part of it is from our perspective, choosing a lab is choosing somebody who will be a partner to work through the difficult situations. There's a lot of routine work that comes in, and, a lot of great material that just, it passes and everything runs smoothly. But in our industry, and I suppose in others as well, there are a lot of situations that come up that are kind of nuanced and detailed, and there's a lot of parties involved. You've got the contract manufacturer, you've got the brand, you've got the raw material supplier. Maybe they're just a distributor and the raw materials being made elsewhere. So, part of our belief is that you need to pick a lab that can partner with you in working through the sticky situations and not just the easy ones.
Yeah, accessible technical support, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I want to dive into that just a little bit more about after that relationship is formed with the lab and where you go from there. But first of all, I just want to say, Alon, a few minutes ago, you said it felt yucky, and boy, that's just such a barometer, right? Like if something feels a little yucky, it's probably a good intuition to step back.
Go with the gut. Always go with the gut.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's say, you use this guide, you fill out the checklist, you feel good about a lab that you partner with. After that relationship forms, Petra, you just mentioned that there are all these steps along the way and ongoing issues, and the lab really has to be a partner. I'm wondering if you could give some sort of guidance to people out there who have chosen a lab and don't know after that, like, hey, is this relationship still good? What are the quality questions I should be asking along the way, just to make sure, as far as relationship maintenance goes, it's still a good fit?
Oh, that's such a good question. Part of it is qualification that happens at the beginning, but you should choose a lab before you start working, like qualify a lab before you start working with them. And, part of that is, do they have a quality system? Are they 17025? Not all labs are.
Can you explain that quickly, what that is?
Yeah. So ISO 17025 is the international standard for testing and calibration services. And it kind of guarantees an overall quality system is in place at the lab that you're choosing. And then specific methods can be included on the scope. Not all labs are 17025, and that can be okay too. It really depends on what your criteria are, and if you can meet your own quality criteria, even if they aren't 17025, if they have systems in place that kind of mimic the quality systems for 17025. For me, one of the telltale signs is, can you get in touch with the technical people who actually touched your sample and reviewed your data? in a reasonable period of time. Every company, every lab out there, they have a way that they take care of requests like this. At Alkemist, you get to speak directly to your sales rep who becomes the conduit for all of that. But if you can't get a hold of a technical person to talk about the specifics of your sample, that's a red flag to me, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is just about the responsiveness of the lab to help with problems. And just what are their systems? Like, can you pick up the phone and call somebody and talk to somebody who knows what your sample is and can get you some help?
Right.
It sounds so basic.
Right.
Well,
but it's true.
They reveal themselves right away. You can't even talk to them, right?
Exactly.
Like, $10,000 or whatever, and now
yeah. So that start with simple, right?
You talked about the accreditation. I wanted to ask you something that jumped out to me, and I have to find it on my sheet here. Something that jumped out to me in the guidance was you stressed that as you are leaning on a lab's FDA, if you are leaning on a lab's FDA registration number as a gauge of credibility, don't. I was just wondering if you could expand on that a little.
I don't even know what that means. I know I know of one good lab who does share that, but I don't. Petra, do we have an FDA number? I mean, is there some number given to us? Because we've never used it as a branding thing.
There's an FDA registration system whereby manufacturers even have to tell FDA essentially they exist, right?
Right.
And we do see it from some of the competitor third-party labs that they are marketing that as a sign of something.
It's like a driver's license, but it doesn't mean you're good at driving, right? Basically.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Like we all have one. Thank you.
Yeah.
But to a company who may not know, it's just another accredited
registered sounds good.
Thrown out there. It's a good warning.
I'll add on to that ISO accreditation is critically important. But for what? And Petra mentioned you add methods. So you can be ISO accredited for milk fat testing. Good job, but that doesn't mean anything about the 2,000 plants this industry trades. So it's important that if you find a lab that claims to be ISO accredited, ask for their scope, ask for the documents. That should be recent. We proudly share our ISO accreditation on our website. You can go there, you can see the actual accreditation, see the date that it's within range, and all the methods that are on there. So you might find a lab that says ISO accreditation, but it might be for some obscure method that they got. It might even be accurate, might not be relevant anymore. So always check that as well.
So they might be a good lab, but they're not the lab for you, for your needs.
Correct. Or they might be a good lab for that particular test, and that's their expertise. And because it is specific, ISO accreditation is specific methods. I mean, so the whole system, of course, but then it's the scope is what tells you the test methods that are on there. And Alkemist enjoys a very rare flexible scope. So basically, identity testing for all plants and fungus, as well as microscopy, as well as a whole number of potency tests and things like in contamination. But our identity methods are all ISO accredited under our ISO scope.
Nice. Alon, what do you think? Let's go big picture a little bit here and talk about the testing industry in general. In our natural products industry, what's changed recently? You mentioned, I don't know if this is a change or not, but you said there are some big labs and there are some small labs. Does that mean, is it about consolidation right now, or what are some things that are changing that maybe some industry veterans might not know about because they just think, okay, labs are labs?
Yeah, we started about 28 years ago, and I would say there was, 15 or 20 labs. And now I think there's maybe, I can think of really quickly, 5. Consolidation happens in every industry, whether it's, furniture or banking or whatever. It's just something that happens. And I don't think it's always bad, but I think it has been bad for our industry. It has really limited the amount of labs you have to choose from. And a lot of the folks who are running labs were, on the end of their careers and it was time to exit. And that's just kind of the natural progression that occurs. And a lot of them got scooped up by some big labs. And as far as I'm concerned, it has not made anything better. The big lab experience is a thing of its own. I'm not here to talk negatively about them, but it's not the same custom experience you get from going to a small lab like Alkemist. Where, like Petra mentioned, we have, your sales person, each other, you you almost always hug at trade shows. We know each other's cats' names, and like that level of detail. I'm not kidding. That level of relationship, which matters. Like Petra, when you pick up the phone, you call up one of our people. It's familiar. The big lab experience is like calling Apple or getting routed through this humongous system, trying to find the person to talk with, and they're not always available. And also, just I think that we live in a very specialized industry. It's complicated. If it was just vitamin C and vitamin D and zinc, it would be much different. These are single components, and much easier to test. And methods exist, and they're already established. But plants and fungi are very complicated. They're promiscuous, and then these marketing folks and formulation folks put them all together. And so, just assuming you can go to a big lab who just yesterday started to be specialists in this category is a fallacy. Really, Alkemist, one of our flaws is that we've focused on plants and fungus forever, and so we're kind of pigeonholed in that. And we are moving on to other things, contaminant testing and also purity and potency, obviously for the last 10 years. But I think a specialist is much better. If you go to the doctor, you don't want, and there's a thing, you want to have the doctor that focuses on that thing rather than your generalist. And so the big labs are like generalist type enterprises with poor customer service, and that's basically the opposite you get with Alkemist and the remaining small labs. I think I can think of 3 or 4 left that have not been acquired yet.
So let's just talk a little bit more about you guys and what you offer. Like, what's the Alkemist difference? What sets you guys apart?
I'll start with that. Our history is in, the identity testing of botanical and fungal products. That is like the bedrock of our brand and our whole company, really. From that, and that we're talking about HPTLC and microscopy. From that, we expanded years ago into strength or potency testing for particular phytochemicals within a plant. And that's really HPLC work, UPLC work. In the last few years, we've worked hard to grow and establish contamination testing for the industry, things like heavy metals, residual solvents, pesticides, microbiology testing. And those are more recent additions. But we've also grown beyond just botanicals to other specialty ingredients like vitamin K2 testing we are doing now. And we've also been doing a lot of work on psychedelic method development and other kind of ancillary, neighbors to the dietary supplement testing. Did you want to add anything, Alon?
Yeah, I'll just add that, the company was funded by my bar mitzvah money and my dad's 401k. No joke. So we started off low tech. Identity testing is the oldest we have in this industry. I mean, looking at something with your eyes, tasting with your tongue, smelling with your nose, that's the basics. Then you go to microscopy. We had the family Sudberg microscope in the house. My mom was a microbiologist, so that was easy, no money there. But very simple HPTLC, actually I should say TLC equipment, less technically advanced than we have now, actually, and grew from there. All of our growth have been a function of our customers, our clients begging us. So we were happy just doing identity testing, plants and mushrooms, microscopy, HPTLC, and then one of the biggest companies in this industry, who's still a client today, literally begged us to get some HPLCs, and we're like, well, we're out of bar mitzvah money and there's no more 401ks. So, we had to scrape it together, got our first SBA loan, put my house up on the line, put my dad's house up on the line, and bought HPLCs. And if you know, they're expensive. They're expensive to buy. They're expensive to run. They're expensive to employ. They're expensive to maintain. So that was the first round of like, please do this. Then the next one, we brought in HPLCs and we brought in a GC for fish oils because of client desire, client needs. And then the most recent expansion into contaminants, which was kind of a longer process, again, raised some money internally through our banking relationships, no investors, and brought on the metals, pesticides, residuals, and microbiology. Again, 100% because our clients were really, really needing us to do that. One, because we have most of the identity work in the industry, and they wanted to keep it there. It was already here with us. Why not add some other tests? And then two, again, I think it's a result of the bad experiences they've had with other labs, where everyone feels they're just a dime a dozen with the other situations. So we made significant investments, millions of dollars to fulfill the needs of our clients and begging, and we're here, we're listening to what they're asking for next.
Yeah, it sounds like
If I can add one last thing to
Yeah.
that, Todd, I do want to make a special mention of the work that we do on multi-component products, either finished products or pre-blends or ingredient, raw materials that are really a blend of different botanicals. The industry has gone definitely in that direction, and we see it in different formats of delivery like gummies. All of these multi-component products and interesting delivery systems like gummies, although I don't know how interesting it is. It's growing and growing and growing. They engender specific scientific challenges. And we have spent a lot of time, and especially in the last 5 years, I would say, Alon, really working on methods. A lot of these are really special projects with clients where the client comes in and they say, we have elderberry in a gummy, and we need to go through all of the scientific steps to prove validity of this product and to prove for our quality systems for regulators that it is what it is. And we've been doing a lot of custom work with clients in that regard. And it's something that sometimes people think, oh, well, that can't be done. Not true. Yeah. It can. It just takes a specific, careful approach that's planned.
Exactly.
Yeah. It certainly sounds like as you evaluate, and you've done this throughout the history of the company, as you evaluate new technology, new directions, it sounds like you're listening to customers, you're listening to clients. And then also we all know how involved you are in the industry, right? And that's one of the things that it seems like that has helped you to kind of navigate the paths along the way of what's a trend, what's worth investing in, what's not. That begs the question, looking forward, I'll just throw this out to both of you, and you can both take whoever wants to go first. What are some trends you see in the next year or two coming around the corner that might affect the regulatory landscape, the testing landscape, really any direction you want to take, but with our industry, what's coming next?
Oh, do you want to start, Alon?
I'll start. Yeah. I have two aspects. One, I think the FDA is getting better and better at knowing our industry, and also knowing what they should and should not be seeing. So I can't go into too much details there, but we have new experts that are engaged in our industry like never before. If you've been to any conference, Gary and Siobhan from the FDA are wonderful representatives of the FDA, and they're really working well with the industry, whereas before we didn't really have that relationship. So we can expect to see further, more serious regulation being enforced, I think, from them and from the FDA. As far as trends go, I think, transparency is one of the last value propositions we have in this industry. We can't say our products work. We can hardly say they're safe without spending, lots of money on research and all this stuff. But at least you can say that it's tested. And I think there's a trend, and I've been pushing this for a long, long time. I'm a marketing guy with a chemistry degree. Basically, I find it amazing that no one talks about quality. And so I'm working on this, my super biased quality index. Maybe it's another piece that we'll do, but I'll just add, here's this checklist. Does your website have the word quality on it? Okay, check. Does your website have a page or a section for quality? Check, check. There's actually a page of quality, check, check, check. And then it's actually talk about how you ensure quality. And is there a quality story in there? Check, 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 check. And I can stop right now at those 4 checks, and hardly anyone in this industry has that. Let alone, is there data on the testing, what testing, next, check, 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 labs you use, because why wouldn't you brag about your amazing lab? Check, 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 check. And then last but not least, are you actually sharing results for batch to batch? And why wouldn't you? Because you have that data. It's already done, right? You already did the testing with the best lab, hypothetically. And why wouldn't you share? It's marketing gold. And so I plan to challenge the industry by checking themselves to say, where are we in this super biased quality index that I've created? Because I think there's so much opportunity to dispel the false narrative that we're unregulated, unsafe, and untested, which is those are all wrong, 100%. And it's our job to change that narrative through transparency.
Makes sense. And Petra, before you go, I would just add to that. From my side, on the marketing side, I see plenty of people mentioning the word quality, but nothing behind it, right? And so then that does a disservice, because then in consumers' minds, they start to think everyone says quality, who knows?
Or lab tested. Cool.
Yeah. So like the details
Now
you
what?
just listed out are so
Yeah.
important to communicate.
Yeah.
All right, Fletcher, you're up. What do you?
Yeah, I mean, one of the other things that I think is pretty clearly going on and that everybody has been noticing is just the rise of fungal mushroom mycelia-based products.
Yeah.
Um, it, there have been industry articles on the mushroom boom, I think.
Shroom boom.
Trumbo.
Mushroom boom.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got so
Trumbo.
excited on this podcast a while ago when we were talking to Namex and
Oh,
he
yeah.
threw out that term. I'm like, I've never heard that, but
Yeah.
apparently I was like last party.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and so we've done a lot of research. We're working with a lot of clients on that. They do engender some like different challenges scientifically for testing. And again, just this continued trend away from single component products to multi-component products that are really more, end use specific with a whole lot of different ingredients in them. And that is, that is a trend that just continues, and it does have some challenges for the science and for the testing. And that just seems to keep going.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, before we wrap up, I want to let you guys kind of take it away with any final thoughts. You told us some of what's on the horizon. We're going to watch for some perspective paper on things that the industry needs to be aware of. You're calling us out on quality. I love that. So we'll help share the news on all that in Whole Foods Magazine as well. But any final takeaways, words of wisdom, words of caution? What do you want to leave the industry with?
I'd like to say, take quality out of the closet. That's one of the last value propositions we have in this industry. You already spent the money on it. Might as well convert that into marketing gold, because your competitors can't, and they aren't doing it. And there's no reason not to if you're doing all the right things. So just share that quality, share that story. You spend millions, in some cases, these brands, millions a year, and there's not a single mention of that on the website. And the consumers all think that we don't, and they need to know the difference. So that's take quality out of the closet.
I love it. For me, maybe this sounds a little dorky, but I want to say thank you to everyone who's downloaded the guide. Thank you for the response. Yeah. It was a bit of an experiment for us to put out a piece like this, and just amazed by the response. And it's gotten us planning for 2025 for some new pieces, maybe like this, on other topics. And so I open invitation. I would love to hear from anyone out there who has a thought on what they want to hear from Alkemist, either education or opinion, because we're looking to do more of this next year. It's been so successful.
That's great.
Yeah, excellent. I just love it how you're always thinking like industry wide, elevating the industry, helping people understand and having that wider perspective. So love what you guys are doing. We appreciate it, right, Todd?
Yep, absolutely.
So much love.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you too.